Hey, everybody, she's back. So, if you were able to watch my video earlier, I had posted that video because I recorded it while the kiddos were still awake, and I didn't do it live because I never know what's going to happen during the day when the kids are here, and so sometimes I do lives with the kids, but sometimes I don't, and that was the reason why, because I knew it was going to be kind of lengthy and meaty, and so anyways, long story short, I recorded the video. I meant to do the whole teaching in the same setting, but it didn't work out because we had not a major crisis, but a minor crisis, but it helped to kind of bring the point to that as parents, we need to be flexible. During a crisis, we need to be flexible. And so the kids kind of helped me make that point. And so I wanted to jump on tonight now that they're asleep, and things go a little bit more smoother as a parent when they're asleep, usually if you have to do some work or whatnot, although sometimes you get a surprise every once in a while and you have to be flexible again because one might wake up. So on the video earlier, if you didn't get a chance to watch that, go back and watch it through. We're talking about parenting or leading through a crisis. And so the 4 things that I talked about in the first video were, number 1, you put your people first. As parents, our people are our family. Okay, so you put the people first if you're a good leader, if you're a good parent. In a crisis or not in a crisis, this should be easy as a parent, because as a parent, you're putting your family first no matter what, always and forever. And so that was number 1, to lead through a crisis, to parent through a crisis, you put your family first. Number 2, I talked about you educate yourself and your family. And so I gave you some resources where to look for that, gave you some kind of background on that. And the main focus right now for our family is to be safe, keep other people safe. The third one I talked about was to be flexible. Okay, just like in coaching, you got to be able to have a plan A and then go to plan B. When I had originally meant for that video to be one video, well, I got thrown a curveball, and as parents, I say we're MVPs. We're multiple variable professionals, because you have this going on and then somebody needs to go to the bathroom, and then you're over here and you're over here. So you're multiple variable professionals as parents. So 2 snaps for you guys. You're doing a great job. And right now, if you're working from home, you're homeschooling your kids from home, you are definitely an MVP. As a parent, as an aunt, as a grandparent, you are doing all kinds of things, creating new ways, being flexible. And so kudos to you guys. You're doing an awesome job. And just a quick tip before we get into the rest of the teaching. If you are working from home, if you have an office area, if you're working, you can put like a red light, green light, yellow light on the door. So your kids know if it's red light, don't knock, don't come in. Wait just a little bit. If it's yellow light, you can open the door and come in. Just come in quietly. That's what I was in earlier, was a yellow light. And so if you saw that video, Reagan did a great job. She came in quietly and, she interacted a little bit. Now, if you have a 2-year-old, they don't quite understand that yet. And so, again, you have to kind of work with it on there. But then if you have a green light, then they can come in, they can knock, and they can interact with you. So if you're working from home, there's some quick tips for you there. And of course, it's age appropriate depending. And so that's a quick tip. So you got to be a quick tip. So you have to be flexible. And then the number 4 thing. So put your family first as a parent leading through a crisis. Educate yourself. Be flexible. And the number 4 thing that I talked about was to leverage or utilize your team, which in this case is your family. And we call ourselves Team Fusiliers. And so just create that culture. When I do my Parents Pursuing Purpose program, we create, one of the core elements is create a culture, and having unity and knowing everybody's strength. That is part of doing that in Parenting with a Purpose. And so those were the 4 things that we talked about. And then I was starting to get into the 5 comments on crisis that John Maxwell shared in his teaching. And I first talked about that crisis actually is very common. And I talked about, and I gave you some examples of all the different crises, and actually some examples of how in this crisis, we are actually ahead of the game for a lot of reasons. And I talked about that, and I won't get into it again, because that's just the tendency. People think that when we're in the crisis, that is, the first crisis on earth, or this is the worst that it's ever been. And so we were talking a distraction going on with our mini crisis earlier in my first video attempt. And so then I was starting to talk about traction means pulling forward or gaining momentum, gaining progress. Distraction, which is, what crisis causes, is pulling away, and it's pulling you over here and over there. And so crisis can be very distracting. And I talked about, if you want to be distracted, then watch the TV news and the social media posts focusing on all the negative. Okay. If you want to gain traction though, okay, feed your faith and starve the fear. Okay. So don't listen to all the negative and all the, bad things that people are talking about. Be wise. Okay. Educate yourself, be wise, and keep you and your family safe and others safe, but don't feed the fear. Okay. And so, I want you guys to just say something to yourself right now. And this is what John Maxwell had us do. Fear will not dominate me. Fear will not dominate me. It won't dominate you. It won't dominate your family. Do not let the fear dominate your home. Okay? You are the leaders of your home. You are the leaders of your family. You are the influence of the people around you. You are the influence of the things you choose to post. Okay? So fear is a liar. Don't feed the fear. Okay? And that's what I'm going to say about that. The third comment on crisis that John talked about was that it reveals what's inside of us. Crisis does. Whatever's on the inside of us is what is going to come out. A lot of people say that I was made by crisis. Well, crisis doesn't make us. Okay? Crisis will reveal us. And the choices that we make during the crisis is what's going to make us. So choices make us. Crisis reveals us. And we have control over our choices. We don't have control over our circumstances and the crisis that's going on, but we do have control over our choices, over the attitude that we have during the crisis, over the perspective that we choose to take during the crisis. We have choices to on how we react and respond to the crisis. And so the crisis is going to reveal us. And that's biblical as well. What's inside your heart is what's going to come out. So feed the faith, starve the fear. So that is what's coming out. And that's the influence you're going to have on the people around you. Because you can't moan and lead and give hope at the same time. Because I talked about earlier, a leader gives the correct perspective. And the correct perspective gives hope and gives encouragement and a sense of security. And so you can't moan and give hope at the same time. And that's what we need right now. We need hope. And we need to give people that hope. And John talked about, I can't remember his name, Bryant, I think. And he talked about love leadership. And he talked about, just to kind of Cliff Notes version, what he said, that basically the best way to live an authentic life, because that's one of the things of a leader during a crisis, you want to be authentic, is that you lead and you're authentic through your scars. He talked about, as you earn your scars, you drop the BS in your life, your belief systems, or the actual BS, because of the history of loss that you've gone through. And loss is wisdom acquired early. And loss helps to kind of ground and mature a person. And leaders are forged through their loss. And I do a training called Purpose in Your Painful Past. And we walk through the steps of finding freedom from your painful past. Because, I don't want to get into that. It's another teaching for another day. But the thing about that is that we can't have a rainbow without a storm. And so we're in a storm now, but I believe that there's a rainbow on the other side of that, okay? And just like when God flooded the earth, he gave us the rainbow as a sign that he wasn't going to flood the earth again. And so sometimes we have to walk through the storm, walk through the pain, walk through the crisis in order to get to the other side. And a lot of times people don't want to do that. Few people want to deal with their mess. And that's where you get wisdom, is through your mess. But a lot of people don't want to put the work in, because that's what it takes. It takes work, and they don't want to do that. And freedom comes if you're able to surrender and say yes to that thing that happened. But it doesn't, that thing happened to me, that painful thing happened to me, this crisis happened to us, but that doesn't define me. And what doesn't kill me will make me stronger. And so maybe you can say, I made a mistake, but I'm not a mistake. Okay, so those were some of the things he talked about. And John, also, he talked about how he is passionate about transformation, and he helps a lot of people have transformation in their lives. And he has discovered that transformation is impossible without people learning and living good values. And it doesn't come by an edict he talked about, or a law of the land, because it happens. Transformation happens from inside of you. And if you have purpose, that means you're going to know your values. That's going to help you make your decisions better. And the result is that you become bigger on the inside than you were on the outside. And that is transformation. All right, so let's review. Crisis is common. Crisis is distracting. A crisis reveals what is inside of us. Those are the first three. And the fourth one he talked about was a crisis requires adaptability and for you to be flexible. And so a crisis is usually just this case study of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty. No one knows how long it's going to last. No one knows how bad it's really going to be. But here's where leadership comes in how the way you parent your family, how this is going to come in. A good parent, a good leader, a good coach has a pregame. When I was a volleyball coach, when I was a softball coach, we would scout, or we would know a little bit about the team we were about to play. So you come in and you have a pregame, okay? But the coaches, the leaders, the parents, at halftime, they have to be able to reflect and look at the situation now. Okay, now that this is our situation, now that we're homeschooling, now that we're working from home, now that we're whatever it is, with the information that we have now, we need to make a plan A, a plan B, and during a crisis, maybe even a plan C or a plan D. And so we need to create a new game plan based on this new information. And you need to be flexible and adaptable. Just like earlier, I had planned to do the whole thing. Now I had to come back later because our minor crisis was that, one, he was supposed to be sleeping, but then my daughter, y'all saw, she walked in, I said be quiet, she woke him up, he got up, and my husband didn't know that he was awake yet, and so I had to deal with that. Anyways, adapt, be flexible. You need to be willing to make a different plan and be adaptable, and that's what good people will do. That's what he talked about. And he also talked about there's a difference between conforming and adaptability. And that's the whole reason why I chose to do this new series of purposeful pandemic parenting, because a lot of people were putting resources out of what to do. And even I created this whole plan of this retreat camp. This is what you could do for your 14 days of quarantine. But again, I wanted to do something more. I wanted to do something a little bit different. And that's kind of why I'm coming on here, and the thing that I'm going to announce a little bit later. Because, and he taught in John Maxwell in his teachings, and that's what I'm sharing with y'all, is he talked about conformity in a negative way, in that conforming is about blending in. Okay, it's about blending in. It's about being, like everybody else, and it's based on rejection and fear. Again, and rejection and fear are liars. Okay, so when a person conforms, and I'm not saying if you're giving resources and different activities, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm talking about conforming to the negative comments and all the negativity that's going on. If you conform, okay, maybe you're doing that because you have this fear of rejection, or stepping out on your own, stepping out on your comfort zone of doing something different because of rejection. Okay, and so, but adaptability is adjusting to succeed, in order to succeed, and adjusting will give you the ability to make the changes and make you better. And so in a crisis, we help people adjust their way to victory. So instead of being a victim, we could be, victors. And are you willing to do whatever it takes as a parent, as a teacher, as a coach, whatever your role is? Are you willing to do whatever it takes for your family to be victors through this crisis? Are you willing to get on some kind of media and learn how to teach your kids? You don't know the math that they're doing. Okay. Are you willing to adapt and, figure it out, look for resources, create resources, or are you going to conform to the world of negativity and just be stuck in this rat race of, oh, I can't do this, I don't know this? What are you going to do about it? Okay. And so the fifth comment on crisis that John Maxwell made when he talked about leading through crisis was that crisis is a time when leaders show up. Okay. And obviously as parents, we're going to show up, or we should. Okay. We're going to show up for our families, and because our kids need us. Okay. Our kids need us to be visible. And he used this analogy of Israelite soldiers, and how the officers, the leaders, are in the front line whenever they go to war. And in fact, there's more officer deaths than soldier deaths, because in war, the soldier should see the back of the officers. So in a crisis, your kids, our young generation, should see the back of our heads, because we're the ones that step up, and we're the ones leading, and we're the ones giving the correct perspective of hope, encouragement, and security and faith for the next generation, so that they don't go into fear. And so during a crisis, leaders show up. You as parents and influencers, you're going to show up. You are going to be the first to show up and create that traction by growing yourself, stepping outside of your comfort zone, and doing whatever it takes. Okay. He also talked about leading during a crisis and showing up early and with clarity. And so we don't always have the answer. I don't always have the answer. I was in the background trying to create different resources, and I showed up early doing that, but then I adapted, and now I'm trying to get more clear before I kind of roll everything out, because leaders show up early, but they show up with clarity, and there is a lot of uncertainty. That's what I was saying. We don't know, what's going to happen. There's uncertainty. You don't have to be the expert. You don't have to know everything. The other thing he talked about is that we can be clear on hope. Hope. Your family wants to know that this too shall pass. Okay? We don't have to know all the answers, but we do need to know the direction that we are going. Okay? And that's why instead of just doing the resources of different activities, games, things to do like that, I want to give you the resources to get clear on your family values during this time. You're spending time with your family. Let's get clear on our family values. Okay? And let's get clear on our vision, because those without a vision will perish. And this can be a great opportunity. Somebody said earlier that I was listening to, I think it was Melanie and Diane, that we can look at things as obstacles, or we can look at them as opportunities. And this could be a great opportunity to know what is our family values, what is the mission we have for our values, and what is our mission statement. And so I'm going to walk you through a couple of things in the next week or so of doing these types of activities with your family, so that you as a family can reach a higher potential, and you can be the salt and the light. You can make yourself better because you have a clear vision of where you're going, and you have that clarity. Because again, we can control the choices we make, so we need to prioritize. Yes, it's nice, and last week I did a lot of TV watching and just spending, mindless time with my kids, and it was great and it was fun. Okay, but we have even more time, so let's use that time well and prioritize things that are important. We're not in the hustle and bustle and the busyness of life right now. Let's use that time and prioritize it to put the people first, to put our family first. Think about Moses. If the ark is sinking, he's prioritizing, right? If the ark is sinking, then you're going to prioritize and you're going to get the elephants off there first, their first priority. It's just going to pay off quicker, okay? They're going to get off the boat first. And so leaders will show up with hope. And he talked about, Jonathan Sachs says, and this is important because one of the most important distinctions I have learned, he was talking about in the Jewish history, is the difference between optimism and hope. Both are good, but there's a difference between optimism and hope. Optimism is belief that things will get better. Hope is the faith that together we can make things better. Optimism is passive. Optimism is a passive virtue. Hope is a active virtue. Get into action. And then another difference is optimism takes no courage, okay, but hope takes a great deal of courage. And so let's just be real, guys. Life is messy. Everything worth doing is uphill. Life is, messy and it's uphill. Things might be out of control around you. Lord knows they were out of control for me today. But you have a choice. You have a choice to make some positive changes and decisions in your life or not. You have that choice. And what are some of those decisions? Personal growth. Your willingness to grow yourself and use this time for that. The only guarantee that we have that tomorrow is going to be better is that you and I are growing today. We cannot give our kids, our family, what we don't first receive ourselves. So what are you doing to grow yourself as a parent and to lead your family? Okay, so I said I was going to do some announcement, but in my Purposeful Parenting program, we go through 3 core elements. And those 3 core elements are pursue God, create culture, and build relationships. During the Purposeful Parenting Challenge, that's what we're doing. We're doing a Purposeful Pandemic Parenting Challenge. I'll be doing it right here in this Facebook group. I'm going to cover some of the things we go through in that workshop. It's a whole workshop. I'm going to just give you, a couple of different activities as a family, and that way you can get through this pandemic together. I will give some, resources and activities to do together, but also to get a clear vision as a family of where you're going. What are your family values? What is your purpose as a family? How can we work together? How can we build our relationships? Okay, how can we create a culture of unity, especially during a crisis? Okay, because what Satan has meant for bad, God will work for the good. And so be on the lookout for that. I hope you found value in parenting through crisis in the first video that I gave you, and then now some of these comments that I just shared with you in this live. Feel free to go back and look at that. And as always, I'm here for you guys. I'm praying for you guys. I'm looking at the members of the group and going through each one of them and actually praying over you. So just know that I'm doing that for you as well. Please reach out to me at any time. Thank you for everything. Post any of your resources that have helped you. Feel free to share those in this group as well. All right. Praying for you guys. Love you guys. Bye-bye.